Hi guys, sorry I couldn't make it to class today, but I hope you like this video. So my animations and art is heavily influenced by today's cartoons and anime. On the realism graph, at least for my characters, I'd say they fall right in the middle of um, realistic and stylized, with a slight favor toward the realistic side. And that comes from my experiences with life drawing classes. And ever since I could draw a body, I always kept my proportions similar to those real life bodies. For my art in general, I'd say that my influences spring from the new music uprising of synthwave. Its charm comes from the lower quality of images and recordings and a hopeful outlook of the future. Lately, I've been representing this in my works by adding a bit of noise texture to my pieces and also like a softer glow to the lighting. I also typically work with warm lighting, but I usually let the situation of the piece decide what kind of coloring I'm going to do. Some of my best works have started off as just a sketch in my sketchbook, and then I poured it over to a digital program in my computer. I previously used to use Paint Tool Sci for my digital drawing, but I've learned how to use Adobe Photoshop to finish my pieces. I start my piece like any other. I start from a general mess of sketches and I just work off of what feels right. Sometimes I can work with a concrete idea from start to finish, but ideas change and it's just something you gotta follow with your gut. For sketching, I usually just start off with the big pieces of the whole picture. Sometimes it's just a single subject with no background, so for this I just construct the big pieces of that subject. Usually this subject is a character, either one of my own originals or one from a TV show. With that general outline, I work into the character and add some details like the face, clothes, or accessories. I then take a photo or a scan of my piece and then I bring it into Photoshop. The first thing I do here is I make sure that the aspect ratio of the document is the dimension for how I want the finished piece to look. If I'm printing, I will make sure the inches match the frame I have for it, or if it's going to be on Instagram, typically I would crop it into a square and so on. Then I line my subject on a separate layer at the largest document size of the current document I'm working in. Then I save the line work as a smart object in case I want to print this in a larger file size later on. I then position my subject in the desired location and then I move on to coloring. I start with my base and get the subject filled. Then I start coloring on top of this with clipping masks to not go outside the lines. I make sure I fill each flat color onto its own layer for better organization. It's at this step where I take lighting into account. If I have a background in mind, I will try to match that setting. But if it's no background, I typically just pick a random light source somewhere and I go with that. Next, I add any effects I have for that character, like any glows or fire, something of the sort. I then throw a color correcting filter over the piece to kind of unify all the colors together. I then stare at the piece for 4 consecutive days until I decide that it's I decide if I want to edit the piece, like any mistakes that I've made or anything I missed along the way. Then I leave the piece alone for a while. If I'm satisfied enough with this piece as I left it, I generally never touch the piece again. With my work, I typically work to create something that is pleasing to the eye and can influence some kind of feeling. Generally, I want to inspire people and make them inspired or fill them with wonder. I wish to bring joy to people's faces. In the end, if the piece makes me happy, then that's all that really matters. Now, how I developed. I've drawn since I was in elementary school, but I didn't really practice every day. It was a couple doodles here and there, and there was no real goal. In high school, I stopped altogether to focus on the career path I thought I wanted, engineering. Electrical engineering at that. I didn't really start drawing until my first or second year of college, like drawing a lot every day. I was influenced by artists like Rebecca Sugar and Alex Hirsch and started drawing characters from their cartoons, such as Steven Universe and Gravity Falls. As the years went on with engineering, I resented my math and science classes more and more, and I drew on my breaks with a group of friends I met at my community college. I realized I had a passion for this again, and I switched my major to art with a focus on animation, and I changed my life forever. I took 1 year of art classes at that college, and then I transferred to Cal State University Channel Islands. I've been at CI for a year now, and being on this path of art and animation for 2 whole years now has just been a tsunami of skill improvement. In this time, I feel as if I've gone from just small doodles to having full pieces with more solid construction and composition. Also, a lot of color theory. I've absorbed so much info in so little time. I feel like it's affected my productivity a little bit. It hinders me in moving forward. I feel stuck when starting a new project because every new one feels like a drastic improvement on the last, and I don't want to make the same mistakes. It is exhilarating, it is scary, but overall, I love what I do, and because if I can put a smile on someone's face, then it's all worth it. All right, thank you, and enjoy the rest of this class. Good luck on your presentations, guys. See ya.